Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Well, it's been said, and I'm sure you remember hearing this, even as a kid, we are what we eat. So my question to you today is, what are you eating? Do you have any idea? I don't think you have an idea. I didn't have an idea of what I was eating. Yes, I knew, I'm eating eggs, I'm eating meat, whatever it might be. But I didn't know exactly what's going into that until I met her. And she is an amazing life and health coach. And we're going to go on a grocery store tour, virtual in our minds. We're going to go aisle by aisle, section by section, and kind of dissect what's actually on the shelves. We may think we know, we don't really know. And that really affects how we feel, how we perform, our physical health, what illnesses we're dealing with. She is Denni Pascuzzi, and she's back with us. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm hoping that the meatball wrap that I got at the health food store is actually good for me today.
Well, if you read your labels, you should be at a better spot than most people just grabbing something that looks good on the shelf.
Yeah, well, this comes from a store that is better ingredients and it's prepared meals. But again, you never know what you're getting. So nothing is better than making it yourself. But we have a lot of misconceptions as to what's out there. Can we start? Why don't we start in the meat section of the grocery store as we're walking, pushing the cart here, trying to decide what to buy? What are some things that we need to be mindful of?
Well, first thing you want to be mindful of is how the meat or the animal, what it's being fed, and what kind of vitamins or antibiotics they're being shot up with, because that affects the meat, and then it also affects our bodies. So if they're constantly being pumped full of toxins or antibiotics to try to keep the animal healthy, then we are affected by that also.
When they say grass fed, what are we talking about here?
Okay. So grass fed is more like out on the pasture. That's what grass fed is. In Texas, a lot of our meat, especially our beef, is corn fed. And so corn for the human body doesn't break it down really easy. I think it's too hard for the body to break down. If you've ever had popcorn, you know that it goes right through you. You don't really absorb any nutrients from that.
I usually say it's so funny. It's like a running joke. It's like if I'm eating corn or popcorn, it's like, see you later. We'll let that go.
Exactly.
You didn't really
Exactly.
digest it.
Yeah. So if you're going to be eating beef, you're going to want to look for something grass fed, but grass finished, because a lot of times they will finish off the last part of that beef's life or that cow's life with corn rather than
Some type of grass.
yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So why would they do that? So you're saying that
It's
for the
cheaper is one. It's cheaper for them to
wow.
fill them with corn than it is for grass.
Hmm.
So a lot of it comes down to dollars and cents. So if it's cheaper for them to process, cheaper for them to keep that animal alive, and then get them to the butcher as quickly as possible, then that works best for that company versus the consumer who is going to be consuming that product.
So I'm in the grocery store, just pushing the cart over to the meat section. Want to pick up something for dinner. Maybe I'm going to get a couple of things and save it. What am I looking for in the packaging? What should I be looking for? A steak. I'm going to buy a steak.
So you typically want something of high quality, something that has minimal processing, something that's not full of antibiotics, and no growth hormones added to it, because that's also something that our bodies are going to be consuming. We don't want growth hormones in our bodies, so you don't want it in the animal that you are consuming either. So those are the things that I would be looking for. Grass fed if you're doing ground beef, grass fed, and grass finished, not corn finished. So sometimes it's not what they say, it's sometimes what they don't say that kind of
Hmm.
makes you want to think, okay, maybe doing a little bit research too of what that company quality looks like and what their message is for how they process that, and or is it transparent?
I'm always, well, recently skeptical about the labeling. What's
Mhm.
being said, what's not being said. So that's why I'm trying to refocus that so I make the right choices when I'm shopping
Right.
because it's I think it's all there in the labeling. And also when we talk about the condition of the animal, I've heard that if it's not the greatest conditions and the animal was under stress for a lot of its life, it goes to a cellular level, and that's the meat that we're consuming, and we're taking that on ourselves.
Absolutely. Yes.
Scary.
Exactly. It is scary. So I live in Texas, so I have a lot of friends who actually raise their own meat, and they are kind to their animals and they love their animals, but they also know this animal's giving them life and that it's given them the best, they've given it the best life that they can before they butcher it. And so I think having an acknowledgement this animal is doing something good for your system and your body, I think is honorable to do to the meat that you are going to be consuming rather than just buying it at the masses from a factory.
Hmm. It's funny you should say that because I have a connection, and he and his wife bought a farm upstate from where I am, and he sent me some of the meat. It was fast frozen, but it's got to be that way to get to you. Uh,
Right.
what a difference! Like just what a difference! It's
If you
amazing.
if you bought in store bought products from a just regular grocery store, and then you buy something from a small like a farm or a small mom and pop ranch, it's night and day from the texture to the taste to the quality of that food. You definitely can see a difference. And sometimes your body doesn't like the difference. I remember when grass-fed ground beef first came on the scene, it had a different taste to it than the corn-fed that I was used to.
Hmm.
So sometimes our bodies are not used to consuming good nutrition dense foods. We're used to the chemicals, we're used to the antibiotics, and it takes a minute to like for our brains to recognize, no, this is the good stuff.
In terms of meat, your
Yeah.
general feeling, how much should we eat? Your guideline for that.
So I am definitely a meat eater. I think that is kind of a I think there's a fad going on that, vegetarians are like a big thing right now. But I am very pro protein from an animal. I think there's some really good benefits from it for both men and women, especially as we age. So I'm pro meat. I'm pro uh, good sourcing of meat, fish, um, salmon. I like lean proteins, turkey and chicken. I like beef, and we eat a lot of lamb at our house. So lamb
Hmm.
is really good for you, and it's not something that you would normally put in your rotation, but it's got really high quality of like zinc, vitamin A, vitamin D. It's good minerals in its meat. So it's a good rotation to have in that cycle of taco night and maybe spaghetti night or whatever you're doing. I like to have lamb in our rotation.
So protein,
Yes.
big proponent myself. I'll share
Good to
with
hear
you.
it.
Years ago, I didn't know anything about, and I was in my upper 20s, low 30s, knew nothing about how much protein, carbs, or any of that. So that was, pretty good shape back then. I would just eat like a roll in the morning or a donut or something like that, go to work all day, have a big pasta dinner. Wasn't even thinking about protein, any of that until one day I passed out.
Too many carbs and not enough protein.
That's what happened. And, I'll never forget, it was an Italian restaurant. And I had pasta dinner. And then I was like, oh, dessert. Well, what is that? Just all straight out carbs. That was my wake up call to the protein situation. And shortly thereafter, after going for tests and nothing showed, I went fishing with my friend and went to a convenience store and grabbed like a big roast beef sandwich. And a lot of times I would have a headache and I don't know what was going on. I ate it and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel better. Then I did connected the dots. Oh, it's protein. So I'm hearing lately that the amount of protein that we should be getting is substantially higher than what was thought previously. Hearing numbers like at least 60 grams of protein a day. Don't know if that's right. What are your thoughts overall?
I think it depends on what your individual goals are, and your body type, and what your focus, what you're trying to do. So I think it differs, individually.
Hmm.
My husband is 10 years older than I am, and he is on the carnivore diet. So the majority of what he eats is protein, meat proteins. And it's good for him. I mean, he is losing weight, and gaining muscle like he's never done before. And even in a later season of life, which I think is amazing. I couldn't consume that kind of protein for my body weight and my body type, and my age and what I'm trying to accomplish. So I think it definitely is individual to each person.
So I want to ask you about that because it's not about me, but I'm just trying to illustrate points here and
Yeah,
everybody's,
go for it.
helps others. So 2 years ago, I was in great shape, had a trainer, probably the best shape in decades. And, kind of derailed, life changes, things going on. Gained about 18 pounds. On me, I don't have a huge frame, so it's kind of a lot. So I've started working out more. I think eating okay. Um, I don't find myself losing weight. In fact, I gained a couple of pounds. I'm like, what is going on there? So I bring this up wondering what I should be doing, but then even hearing about your husband, that the carnivore diet doesn't sound bad to me. How that's working for him.
It's working great for him. It's a lot. It's a lot of meat to consume in, day to day. It's a lot to prep.
What
Um,
about carbs? What about carbs going on here?
he eats some vegetables. He's not super hardcore in the carnivore. We have friends who do all meat, like they don't do any vegetables at all. So he will add some vegetables in there. So I think it's good to have the vegetables. It helps things keep going in the digestive tract. So I do think that is a good balance in there, but he is definitely heavy on the meat. So I would say like, 2/3 of his plate is meat and then 1/3 is vegetable.
Hmm.
Um, so there's it, and I think it's good for him, but he also is a heavy lifter. He is high energy, and he doesn't spend he spends maybe 45 minutes in the gym every day. But it's good for his mind, I think. There's a lot of really good components to it, especially for the man. I think physique is to have that extra protein. I just don't think we eat enough protein across the board. And I think it's good for brain health. I think it's good for a lot of components, especially as we age. What you could do specifically is you have a sitting job, so you sit a lot. So maybe it's what you're doing with that. Not getting enough movement throughout the day or breaks throughout the day. Maybe I don't know what your carb, intake is. Maybe less carbs, more protein,
Hmm.
especially if you're working out.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you nailed it there. Um, what changed? My role. Yes, I am sitting more. I'm
Yeah.
going to stand up if you will. No. But that's it. I got back with the trainer who I had 2 years ago, and that's what she said. She goes, "Yeah, yep, you're sitting more. There it is." And interestingly, on a fitness level, um, even like my flexors and legs and things like tighter, stiffer, need stretching just from sitting. I don't think we realize how bad sitting is, for longer
It's
periods of
horrible
time.
for you.
It's horrible. It really
Horrible.
is.
I don't think our bodies were created originally for that. It was for being out in the field or moving around or hunting or
Yeah.
very active. And we have put people inside, so you're not getting active. We've talked about good sunlight, healthy
Mm-hmm.
sun.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sensitive to the actual sun, and we are isolated in little cubicles or boxes all day, and we're sitting in it. So our whole body's being kind of crunched, and I don't think that's what our frame was designed for, what our bone structure was designed for, what our muscles were designed for. It's a lot of strain to sit. It's not a lot of strain to move. So I
Right.
think there's something there. And one thing I would also mention is, where's your stress at? Stress is a huge component for holding on to things.
Yes. Yes. You're totally right. And I went through a stressful period. Um, and that actually has impacts in other ways. Even like your cholesterol levels and all of that, the cortisol.
Yeah,
Um, all this stuff comes into play. This is the stuff that we don't realize. How if this is out of whack, that's going to be out of whack. Maybe that's going to be out of whack there. Um, in the time we have left,
yeah.
I'm getting out of the meat aisle and whoa, the produce aisle. We talked about vegetables before. How about some thoughts there on what we should look for, what we should look out for?
I think it depends on the individual. So a real individual mindset. So not all vegetables are bad inherently. But like for me, for example, my body shows up with, I eat nightshades, which are fruits and vegetables that get most of their nutrients from the moon rather than the sun. It shows up with inflammation for me. So I can't do carrots, eggplant, um, some vegetables like kale is really hard on my system. And kale is like, hot ticket item. Everybody's super into kale. It's like eat the kale, eat the kale. I can't eat the kale. Tomatoes, I can't eat that. But it doesn't mean those are bad vegetables. Those are just not good for my body. So
Hmm.
again, looking back at the bioindividuality of each individual person, I think it depends on the person and it depends on what their goals are. Are they having issues with inflammation? We might look at taking out some nightshades because they tend to be inherently more inflammatory foods or high in acid. But I think all vegetables to an extent are really good for you. I love a sweet potato, also considered a yam, really high in protein, magnesium. It's a good mood booster in the winter time. It's a superfood. I mean, you know that by its beautiful color. So we eat that often at home.
Hmm. And I
Broccoli,
just want to interject in here. The
yeah.
pre-prepared meals I get from a fitness place, they use a lot of sweet potatoes. That might be the foundation or the bed for some meat or whatever it might be.
Absolutely. We eat a lot of that at home. I have two teen boys, 15 and 14. So it's like um, preparing food for an army every every meal, keeping their protein up and some good carbs like sweet potato. I also really like broccoli.
Mm.
Broccoli is really high in vitamin C, higher than on orange. And
Wow.
it's great for it's great for the digestive system. You can cook it with just straight herbs like garlic, salt and pepper, and
Yeah.
a little
And it's
bit.
got protein. I think in my memory, broccoli is the only vegetable that has protein or a higher level. Not a lot, but it's got something.
Absolutely, and it's rich in color, so it's nutritionally dense. So that's
Hmm.
a good one. We do Brussels sprouts at home. I cook with a lot of garlic and herbs, so to keep up that immunity as we're consuming vegetables. I'm not a big salad eater. I
Hmm.
think it can be hard on the digestive tract sometimes. It doesn't have a lot of nutritional dense qualities. It's more roughage. So I would much rather you eat real, like in dense vegetables rather than like a salad.
Wow. So interesting. Again, that goes back to the perception. One would think, I'm going to eat a salad. It's good for me. But are we mindful of how we're feeling after we eat it? Whether you're gassy or whatever it might be.
Right.
I've been eating more salads because I think it's healthier. Um, but now you're making me rethink that. And what I'll do is, when it takes like 10 minutes in the morning, of course, lettuce. I'll add to that. I'll cut up different colored peppers, cucumbers I'll cut up and put in there. Um, Croutons, not a lot, maybe some dry cranberries, a little bit of sweetness going on there, and some kind of meat, whatever it might be. Unfortunately, sometimes I pivot to cold cuts because it's easy. It's better than not. I mean, best case scenario, cook your own because then you can control the amount of sodium.
Absolutely. I think for you, if you're trying to lose a little bit of weight, I would up that protein, and instead of do like more of like lunch meat protein, I would put some chicken in there, like some
Yeah.
real, like, roast chicken. We do that in the Instapot. You could do that the night before and just have it ready. So it's quick. Or you can get a rotisserie at the, grocery store, and just, that's probably a better, or even steak,
Yeah.
something a little bit more dense in the protein section, and maybe switch it up. Instead of doing salad, do maybe like some spinach in there, or some,
Hmm.
something a little bit different.
I never thought of that. And I'm good with spinach. And you can find a bag of it right next to the, pre-bagged lettuce if you go that route. I want to ask you about vegetables. And when you're shopping, are you very much a stickler for organic? It has to be organic.
I try to do as much organic as possible because you're not having the pesticides sprayed on everything. So I do definitely do. But if somebody's trying a little bit more budget conscious or trying to minimize the cost in that area, we talked a little bit about the Dirty Dozen,
Mm.
avoiding out the ones that are heavier on toxins or pesticides, like strawberries. They get stuck in all those little seeds. That's a better option for buying organic rather than just regular store bought, because then they are full of those toxins that you're consuming. So knowing that is always a good option. I like to try to give options because it's expensive. It's not always feasible to buy, across the board everything that you can, the cleanest you can. When my boys were really little, milk has a lot of hormones that are added to the milk, and it actually causes, especially in young boys, it actually grows, helps, like, makes their boobs like grow or develop. So it was like,
Yeah.
we don't want to do that. We don't want to give them this growth hormone for our children. So we opted out to do organic milk. So something
Yep.
that was not full of these growth hormones. Our boys don't need that, especially.
Even to your point, I had this conversation not too long ago with a friend of mine who's a parent. Um, Teenage girls develop so much sooner than they did like when we were kids. It's got to be the milk. I mean, there's, because those growth hormones are put in there.
But they're also in chicken. I mean, we had this
Mm.
restaurant growing up that the chickens came out and they were like the size of like a turkey. And you're thinking, chickens aren't the size of a turkey. So what are they putting in this chicken? What are they doing to this chicken to modify it to make it grow 3 to 4 times its size? Because it looks better, or it looks more appetizing, or they're getting more money per pound. It kind of goes back to who's making money off of our food. It's not us, the consumer, it's the one who's selling it.
Yeah. It's a scary world out there. It's like the Wild West when you
Definitely.
go to the grocery store. Um, but a lot of the stuff we don't know until we consult with somebody like you, and truly appreciate all the insight. Learned so much in like literally a few minutes, and that's just the starting point. Denny, if somebody wants to really take it seriously in terms of what they're eating and their health, how do they connect with you?
So they can call me. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. So my phone number is 254-493-1830. You can either text me or just give me a call and leave me a message. I also have a website. You can reach me through that website. It's highestpotentiallifeandhealthcoaching.com. And then I also have a email. You can reach me at hp.healthcoaching23@gmail.com. And then I offer both in-person and virtual sessions. So if you are local, I'd love to, connect with you. But if you're not, if you're out of state, I can connect with you virtually like we are doing today.
Can be anywhere on the planet. And
yeah, maybe not on Mars, but
they probably eat better there anyway. They don't have all those pesticides. Denni, great talking with you. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for everything, and we'll catch up soon.
Sounds good. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.